Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a company you've probably never heard of, but one that holds the keys to our entire digital future. And it all comes down to one machine, a machine that pushes the very limits of physics.
So to really get a handle on ASML, you gotta picture what they actually make. And trust me, it's not something that just sits on a desk. No, we're talking about a technological monster, a machine as big as a house and as heavy as a small jet.
And inside this thing, well, it's like a whole other world, an environment of unimaginable extremes. We're talking about a perfect vacuum, absolutely no air, no dust, not a single stray particle. There is zero room for error because what happens next is just incredible.
Get this, a super high-powered laser blasts a tiny droplet of molten tin, and it doesn't do it once or twice, it hits it 50,000 times every single second. This just vaporizes the tin, turning it into this brilliant plasma that glows hotter than the surface of our sun. Absolutely wild.
Okay, so you've got this insane light source. Now you have to catch it. And that's done with mirrors that are, well, they're basically the smoothest things humans have ever made. Seriously. To give you some perspective, if you blew one of these mirrors up to the size of, say, Germany, the biggest bump on it would be less than a single millimeter high. That is just mind-bogglingly perfect.
So, what is this thing, this ultimate machine, and why should you care? Here's the crazy part. It doesn't actually make a single computer chip, not one. And yet, without it, the most advanced electronics on the planet, your phone, your computer, everything, they simply wouldn't exist.
All right, the big reveal. This is an extreme ultraviolet lithography machine. You can just call it EUV. Think of it as the most advanced printing press in human history. It doesn't print words, it prints the microscopic blueprints for every modern computer chip. And the craziest part? It's only built by one company on the entire planet, a Dutch company called ASML.
So where did this impossible machine even come from? Well, its story doesn't start in a boardroom with a fancy business plan. Nope. It starts with what seemed like a totally absurd question, asked by a scientist in a Japanese research lab, way back in the 1980s.
So this scientist, Hiro Kinoshita, he had this wild idea. He basically asked, hey, what if we tried to make computer chips using a type of light that, well, that barely even exists here on Earth? He was talking about extreme ultraviolet light. This stuff is so energetic, so powerful, that it gets absorbed by pretty much everything it touches, even air.
And this is why that crazy idea was so brilliant. It really all comes down to a simple principle. The shorter the wavelength of the light you use, the tinier the circuits you can draw. Using the old light was kind of like trying to draw a super detailed portrait with a big fat marker. But EUV is like getting a super fine pen. It lets you create details that were just impossible before.
But as brilliant as the idea was, turning it into reality was a total nightmare. I mean, think about it. If this light gets absorbed by everything, you can't use normal glass lenses to focus it. The whole process has to happen inside a perfect vacuum. For decades, almost everyone in the industry just laughed it off. They called it a dead end, a fantasy for academics, not for serious engineering.
And that skepticism wasn't just talk. It led to what you could call a long, brutal winter for anyone working on this. For years, the technology was just seen as a colossal failure, a money pit that was swallowing billions and billions of dollars with almost nothing to show for it. Just look at this timeline. It really shows you how much grit this took. You had research starting in the 80s. Then in 2000, a US consortium finally builds a prototype, but it's useless. It's way too slow for mass production. And that's when the big guns, we're talking Intel, AMD, Motorola, they all tapped out. They said it's too hard, too expensive, and they walked away. And that left just one company still in the game, ASML.
So, fast forward. After decades of struggle and billions of dollars, much of it actually invested by its own future customers who are desperate for this to work, it all came down to one single make-or-break moment for ASML.
And here's the bottom line. The machine still wasn't powerful enough. It could work, but it was way too slow to actually make money. And the industry's patience was completely gone. This was it. If ASML couldn't deliver a major breakthrough right then, the whole EUV dream was dead. Finished. Everyone had a magic number in their head, the one target they had to hit to prove this thing could work at scale. And that number was 200 watts. They needed 200 watts of power from that EUV light source. Anything less, and it was just a very expensive science experiment. So,
with their investors' patience totally shot, the top brass at ASML gets summoned to Korea, basically to face the music. And you have to picture this scene. As they are getting on the plane, back in their lab in the Netherlands, the final do-or-die test to hit that 200-watt target is still running. They had absolutely no idea if it was going to work or not.
Can you just imagine the tension on that flight? I mean, everything. The fate of their company, 30 years of research, maybe even the future of the entire computer industry, it was all hanging in the balance. And it was completely out of their hands.
And then the plane lands. A message is waiting for them. And the news? The test worked. It was a success. They had hit the 200-watt target. After all that time, all that struggle, the dream of EUV was finally, truly alive.
So that one single moment, that message they got after that incredibly tense flight, it didn't just save a project. It completely reshaped our world. It created a kind of technological monopoly that we've almost never seen before. Think about it. Today, the most powerful chips, the ones in your phone, your computer, the ones running the massive data centers that power the internet, none of them can be made without EUV technology. And this chart right here, it says it all. Who makes these machines? ASML. 100% of them. It is a complete and total monopoly.
And as you might guess, that monopoly has made ASML Europe's most valuable tech company. We're talking a market cap of around €500 billion. And that's not because they have a cool logo or great marketing. It's because of pure, simple indispensability. You want the best chips, you have to go to them. Period.
And this is where it gets really interesting for us right now. This monopoly puts ASML right at the center of the AI revolution. I mean, all these tech giants, Microsoft, Google, Meta, they're all building these enormous AI data centers. Those data centers run on the most advanced chips in the world, made by companies like NVIDIA or AMD. And where does every single one of those chips begin its journey? You guessed it, inside a machine built by ASML.
You know, when you look at it, their story is just such a powerful lesson. These massive technological breakthroughs, they don't just pop up overnight. They're the result of decades of grinding it out, of resilience, of weathering failure after failure, and just believing in an idea long after everyone else has thrown in the towel and called it impossible.
So when you boil it all down, here's what we've got. A single company, one most people have never even heard of, from the Netherlands, has become the absolute, indispensable bottleneck for our entire digital world and our AI future. They built the machine that builds tomorrow. And that leaves us with a really big question to think about, doesn't it?